Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast Show. And we're talking to Devora Segall today. Welcome to the show, Devora.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, today's guest spent the last 10 years as a therapist working with parents at the breaking point. 29 years ago, you were standing in your kitchen crying before work because you couldn't get your 4-year-old dressed. Uh, Tell me how that relates to where you are now in your life.
So, I guess that kind of started me on this journey to try to figure out better ways to get kids to cooperate. At that moment, I kind of realized that I don't have the skills. I know what I want to do and how I want to be with my children, but I don't have the skills. I don't know how. I don't know how to get my child to do what they need to do while still keeping that connection with them, without the yelling and the threatening.
So, is it actually possible to stop yelling, or is that just who you become?
What do you mean? What's your question?
So, I mean, that's as a parent, um,
Hmm.
that um, the sometimes the knee jerk reaction is to just yell at your kids. Is that the best way to do it? Is that
Well, no.
just
The short answer is no. The long answer is it takes time to retrain ourselves. If that's the only model that we have for how to get kids to do things, because maybe that's what we experience, it's going to take time to train ourselves to do something different. But it really is very much worth it because we really want those relationships with our children. We don't want a relationship of fear. We want a relationship of love and connection.
so? Is it actually possible to be fully present at work and fully present at home, or does something always have to give?
As long as our children are in a good place, in other words, we make sure that they have childcare that we're happy with, that they're happy with. We can fully focus on our work when we're at work. It's just, when they get to those, teens and tweens, when they're constantly calling us, then that becomes a little sticky. We kind of have to figure out what are appropriate boundaries and make sure that our children have somebody else to reach out to when we're, that hour or two maybe that we're not home yet, that our children are already home.
So, what does parental burnout look like day to day? Not in a textbook, but real burnout.
So that's a really good question. It's not specifically what I focus on my work. The burnout, it's more the day-to-day overwhelm, about the things that we're dealing with. So the burnout means the overwhelm and the overwhelm and the overwhelm and the overwhelm to a point where we just don't know what to do first, right? So like we're just depleted and we can't manage, right? Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Sure. So tell me how your program works differently, or how do you help moms to address what's being a better mom or helping their children. Tell me a little bit more specifically about your program.
So my program is specifically geared for moms of kids 2 to 12 who find that they're yelling too much and they see that fear in their children's eyes and they feel like they become scared that what's going to be? Am I going to have a relationship with these children when they're older? If I'm constantly trying to manage them by yelling and threatening and even, hitting them on occasion, if I'm constantly overreacting to their normal child behaviors, how am I going to have a relationship with them when they're older? Not only that, each time we yell, we just feel so guilty. We're being kept up all night. When we're at work, we're worried about our children. When we're with our children, we're worrying about the future. Like we're not able to really focus and just enjoy those times with our children because we kind of we're either we don't have the skills or we have the skill. We know what we want to do, but we find that we're not able to do it in the moment. the way I help them is I teach them the skills,
So how?
and then I stay, yeah, and then I
No, go
stay with
ahead.
them,
Continue.
and then I stay with them, and I support them in installing and practicing these skills until they become almost second nature.
So how do you do that? Because this is an emotional reaction. You have a child at home, and they misbehave, and then you immediately jump on, yell at them to stop misbehaving, and then that creates a cycle where the kids can also get into this yelling situation. How do you coach someone out of that? Because it sounds like you're coaching them out of an emotional response.
So again, we're not trying to what we tend to do with emotions, we tend to try to stamp them out, stamp them down, and then they tend to explode. If you think about the metaphor of a tea kettle, right? If you push it down, it will just explode. So when we try to tamp down feelings, that's what happens. So that's not what we're trying to do here. We start with awareness, being aware, truly aware of what's going on inside us when our children act up. What's going on in our bodies, what are our thoughts about what's going on. And once we have that awareness, we kind of slow things down internally. Once we have that awareness, then we can have more choices about what to do next. And what to do next, there are so many different ways that I teach, so many things we can do to lower the temperature, to lower our internal temperature. And then we can react in the best way possible. We're kind of trying to move ourselves into wise mind, a state of being aware of our own emotions and our children's emotions, while at the same time being aware of what's right or what's the right thing to do in this moment. We want to get back into wise mind. Really, this applies in the workplace as well. In any relationship, we want to be in a place of wise mind, not cold and calculating, but not overwhelmed and working just from emotion.
So when I think of, so you're coaching these moms. So to give me an example of what that might look like. So you have a new mom that you're trying to help to, she's stressed out and reacts to her kids when they misbehave. Give me an idea of how you would interject yourself in that situation to give her a better outcome for her kids.
So the first skill that I teach is awareness, right? Is just, we first check for safety. Again, an overreaction is appropriate, is not an overreaction when somebody's in imminent physical danger. So that's the first step. We always talk about checking for safety. But once there's no imminent physical danger, even if it feels in our system like an emergency, it's really not an emergency, right? So that's the first thing I teach moms is check for safety. Ask yourself, is this an emergency? If it isn't, then we go to the next step, which is taking a break, breathing, noticing what's coming up for me right now. Not what's the kid doing, but when my kid has done such and such, or my kid just answered me in a fresh way, what's going on for me? What are the thoughts? What are the feelings? What are the body sensations? We just slow everything down. That's kind of the first step that I teach my moms, is just the noticing. And I believe strongly that the first step to change is awareness.
And if someone's coming home and snapping at their kids every night, even though they love them, what's the first thing that they should change?
What's the first thing they need to change is awareness, is
Yes.
noticing what's going on for me when I'm walking in the door. But actually, I would go even further back. When I'm getting into my car or however I get home from school, from work, checking in with myself. How am I feeling? Did I drink enough? Did I eat enough? How exhausted am I? Do I need to do some meditation? What do I need to do so that I'll be ready to face whatever my children throw at me. So really, it's taking a step back. We can't wait until we're in this situation with our children to do something different.
So what is a wise mind, and how does a parent access it when they're 3 minutes from losing it?
That's a really good one. Again, going back to awareness. Okay, we're 3 minutes away from losing it. Are we aware that we're 3 minutes away from losing it? And what's happening in our bodies? And when was the last time we had a drink? When was the last time we used the bathroom? What's going on for us? In other words, taking a break. When I'm 3 minutes away from losing it, if I'm aware that I'm 3 minutes away from losing it, that's the time to take a break. Again, with the caveat that nobody can be in imminent physical danger, right? Then we have to first make sure there's safety. But barring that 3 minutes away from losing it, that's when we take a break.
So if someone says, "Oh, this makes a lot of sense," then and I want to talk to Devora more about this. And how does it work where you take on somebody as a new? Do you call them clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how does it work? So I say, okay, I love what you're talking about, and I can see that this is going on in my life, and I think that if most parents were honest about it, particularly, well, I don't want to be sexist, but if most parents are honest about it, that they would fall into that category for sure at least part of the time. So how would you interject? How would working with you work? What's the pragmatic part of what you do?
So right now what I'm offering is kind of a 3-month coaching program with the option to continue longer. And that includes one-on-one coaching, and as well as office hours where I'm available a few hours a week where they can come in and ask, questions that come up throughout the week. Along with that, I'm offering texting where we can the purpose of the texting is sort of to reinforce skills. Like my child is, is jumping on the couch and he's going to destroy the couch or whatever it is. So my text back would be, what skill can you use right now? Or what have you tried? Or did you try taking a deep breath? Did you try speaking in a calm voice? Again, depending on where the client is up to, that will be the questions that I'll be able to answer via text. So that's really the program. It's really it's a 3-month program or 12-week program. And each week we focus on a different skill. Along with that, they have a chance to ask questions and role play the skills that I'm teaching.
So it's mostly a one-on-one. Do you have a course or something like that that goes with this?
So there is, again, the one-on-one will be recorded. I also do have recorded courses, but I just don't find mothers necessarily have the time or will take the time to watch them. That's why I'm doing this one-on-one. I feel like it's more immediate. They have something they have to show up for.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a good example where you put this your program into action where it's helped a mom have a result?
Sure. I'm just thinking about one mother that I worked with, and she said, she struggled a little bit with ADHD, and she would work so hard to get her children's clothes. She had 3 children, the young mother, and she struggled so much to get her children's clothing in order for the day before. And then she would wake up the child, I believe he was maybe 8 years old, or maybe 5 or 8 years old. She would wake up the child and go out of the room to do something. And then the child would be screaming, "I can't find my socks." Like, for anyone with ADHD, you could totally relate. It's like you work so hard to get things in order and to give the child what they needed. And she said she felt like screaming. Like, listen, kid, why did you have to lose the socks I gave you? Again, she was aware on the one hand that this was normal child behavior. And yes, sometimes kids will lose even the things that you give them. And on the other hand, it was just so much for her. She felt so overwhelmed by it. And overworking on these skills of awareness and emotion regulation, and as well as the interpersonal effectiveness, where she was able to communicate better with her child, to set boundaries and get her child to do what he needed to do, she reported back to me, she's not yelling anymore. She's not screaming at the kid for these childish behaviors. Of course, there were new things that she was struggling with, so we have to work through those new things. But, like every step of the way is so, like, I feel like with this kind of work, I just was telling somebody, we're kind of improving the world one child at a time.
So, how much of the stress parents feel is actually about parenting versus unresolved stuff from their own childhood?
With the parents that I work with, I would say it's 75% their childhood.
Yeah.
With the parents that I work with. Does that apply to everyone? Probably not.
So how do you work through that issue, or do you deal with that issue?
So in my individual therapy, absolutely, I deal with that issue. That's what I do as a trauma therapist. In my groups, or this isn't a group, but in my coaching, no, I refer that, if they're ready and if they feel they need to do deeper work, I would refer them to a therapist. I'm personally licensed only in New York and New Jersey. I can only work with people in those states as a therapist. As a coach, we can work on parenting, and I would refer them to a coach for that deeper work. My goal in offering this type of coaching is that the goal is that they should be able to function in their day-to-day lives, even with these unresolved childhood challenges, scars, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm. So, one word to describe what most parents are missing that would change their outcome.
What they're missing. It's hard to put it into one word.
So,
calm, maybe?
Calm, that would be a good one. So you've written multiple books on parenting. What's the one thing you wish you figured out 29 years ago?
I guess how to manage big feelings. One of the most important things I learned, like in my journey to become a therapist, was that feelings don't last forever. The idea that that emotions come like waves. Not to be afraid of feelings, not to be afraid of expressing and feeling our feelings.
So, without naming names, tell me about a mom who came to you completely depleted and what happened.
So I remember a mom. She had 4 children. She was living in a basement apartment, she was living underground almost. And she was really like feeling very depleted and having difficulty. Her husband had challenges, wasn't able to be so supportive. And just, me validating what she was going through when giving her a few parenting skills and tips, she was able to tap into her internal resources that she hadn't been connecting to them before she came to work with me.
So you've written multiple books. Tell me about those books.
So my first book was more like surface level, was sort of just talking about these skills that parents, when they learn these skills and they use these skills with their children, they'll be more successful. They'll have a better relationship with their children, and they'll be able to raise children who are more sensitive and attuned to their children. That was my first book. My second book was more of an expansion in that book. My first book is called Sensitive Hearts, Strong Minds. And my second book is called The Peaceful Parenting Solution, Your Step-by-Step Guide to Becoming a Better Mom. So that was really step-by-step it's really what my program is based on. It's really step by step what to do. It starts from figuring out what our values are as mothers, as humans, and what our parenting style is and where our deficits are. And then it goes to teaching the core skills and walking through also how to teach those skills to our children once we've mastered them. It's a very practical, hands-on book. I also did a recording of it, an audio of it. So it's available by audio because a lot of mothers were asking me for that. So yeah, those are my books. Anyway.
Okay. So can you find them on Amazon?
You can find them on Amazon. I don't believe my audiobook is yet on Amazon, but I believe it's elsewhere on Apple, Spotify. It's on different, audio places where you can purchase audio besides Amazon. Yep. I'd like to offer a free gift to your audience. I have on my website the separate chapters of the audiobook. And if they want, they could download it for free. They just have to, enter their email address and they would be able to be redirected to the page where they get the free audio. Is that something that you think your audience would appreciate?
Sure. Yeah. Give the URL where you'd find that.
So I made a very easy URL. It's called parentingaudio.com. And it goes to my website, segallcoaching.com. But that's what it is, just for that specific page.
So where is Segall Coaching going? What's the version of this work in 5 years? Or where would you like to go?
Where would I like to go? Well, I would like to have groups. I'd like to have a community of women who are working on these skills. What else would I like? I guess I want to do some, I'm trying to reach out to schools in my community, and I'd like this to be a movement of self-awareness for mothers, so that, we're raising children who will have that self-awareness already when they become parents. Self-awareness and emotion regulation and these interpersonal effectiveness skills. The things that I'm teaching come from a modality called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. And I feel like this is something that's only known really in the therapy world. I feel like this is something that we could all use, especially those of us who are parents. So that's really what I want. I want this to be something that people are aware of and people are using in their day-to-day life.
So if somebody goes to Parenting Audio, can they connect up with you there if they want to go beyond just getting the audiobook?
Sure. Well, they could go directly to my website, segallcoaching.com. But, they should be able to get that information there as well. It's, I have a phone number. They could text me. If you want, I can give that to you as well. It's 732-523-0370.
Okay, Devora, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And so I'd encourage anybody who has these issues, which is probably most mothers, to reach out to Devora, and she'll be there to help you. Thanks for coming on the show, Devora.
Okay, thanks for having me. Thank you.